Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a video and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Today, it is my privilege to welcome someone who is spending a lot of time in human rights, Sohini Bhattacharya, to our show. Sohini, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. Sohini is the CEO and president of Breakthrough, which is a human rights focused on gender-based violence. She's on the advisory board of Dastkar, and she's the co-founder of Sanhita, which is a gender rights center. Sohini, tell me, what would you say are three key milestones in your life or your career?
So Ashutosh, I think the first milestone is joining this sector.
Okay.
You know, I did that about 30 years ago, to be very precise. And I had no clue what I was up for. You know, there was no clear pathway. There's no career planning, nothing. I was a blind person trying to find my way in this. And I just wanted to do something which was very close to my heart, that work with women and girls to give them the voices and the options and the choices that I've had in my own life, you know. So that was just the passion that I had, and I went into it. So I think that was one of the life-changing moments when I decided that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, let's talk a little bit about Breakthrough.
Okay.
Talk to me about this venture. What do you do?
So Breakthrough was founded about 20 years ago by someone called Malika Dutt, who was an American Indian. Living in New York at that point of time, and living in Delhi at that point of time, and later on in New York. And the whole idea was that there was, you know, when you want to talk about women's, you know, issues, you know, what do women want? What are their dreams? What are their aspirations?
Yeah.
You're talking to echo chamber mostly, you know, activists and other people who are all involved in this. But how do you bring it out to the public? How do you make it an issue that the public wants to talk about?
Okay.
And she thought that mainstream media is one of the, you know, closest and the most entertaining way in which you can talk about this to common people. And so she made a music video with a crack team, which was then, you know, not so well known. It was Shujit Sarkar, Shantanu Moitra, Prashun Joshi were big names in the industry now. And she put them together and she did this music video. And one of the songs sung by Shubham Budkal called Man Ki Manjeere went to the top of the charts and stayed there for 6 months, you know. Okay. And all of these, you know, this group of 4 or 5 people, they use this song to talk about, you know, violence against women, domestic violence and other kind of issues to people who are not, you know, not party to this kind of a conversation, people who are unlikely partners, you know, unlikely audiences all over the country. And so this whole idea of using actually a dominant culture to flip it and create an alternative narrative in which everybody is valued and there's dignity and there's justice for all was a novel idea. And Breakthrough was founded on the basis of those ideas. Okay. How do you take the very dominant culture, how do you flip it, and how you show people that an alternative culture, an alternative norm is possible?
Fantastic. So tell me, you know, give me one or two, you know, anecdotal incidents of where you have taken up an interesting issue without giving names.
So, you know, so let's talk about, you know, the whole thing about using culture to change culture. So, for example, you know, we worked in Haryana, which is one of the most gender regressive states in the whole country. And in Haryana, when a boy is born, the family members, you know, beat a thali to announce the birth of a boy. And as you know, Haryana has a very skewed gender, you know, child sex ratio. So,
correct.
You know, and at one point of time, there were 775 girls, 2,000 boys.
Wow.
You know. So this is a big practice, you know, everybody knows that a boy is born, everybody celebrates. One of our staff members, you know, 6 months after he joined Breakthrough and went through the orientation, his brother had a daughter, you know, baby daughter born to him. And he beat the thali in his village to announce the birth of a girl. So,
Wow.
you take a dominant culture, you flip it, and you show the entire community that the birth of a girl is to be celebrated.
Correct. Yes.
This became such a norm that a couple of years ago, with government's Beti Bachao Beti Padhao of campaign, we had ran a joint campaign called the Thali Bajao campaign, where the community was being asked to celebrate the birth of a girl, and so there were birthdays being celebrated, birthday cards being given to girls, and this whole idea of value of girls in the society, in the community, went up. So that's one of the examples of the work that we actually do.
Amazing. And has the gender balance of 775 to 1,000, has it started to change in Haryana, or it just has been?
It has changed a little bit. It has, in fact, it has gone up quite a bit, and the government report says that it's actually doing quite well. But the gender biases still exist, right? And they exist across the community, they exist across the world, actually.
Correct. So again, I want to talk to you about the issue of whole gender violence.
Right.
But you've spoken about gender bias, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on how can we correct this gender bias. I mean, it is there in our country. It is beginning to change, but it's very slow.
So, activists for years have actually called violence against women and girls a pandemic, before this pandemic kind of hit.
Correct.
There is evidence that 1 in 3 women have faced intimate partner violence in their lives. In India, 1 in 4 girls still get married at a very early age, and nobody asks them whether they want to get married. We know that 93% of young girls faces sexual abuse before the age of 15 from somebody who is, known to them, right? But these are staggering statistics, and these are very, very, damning statistics. But if you look behind the statistics, India is a country which is deeply, deeply rooted in patriarchal culture.
Correct.
And what is it like to be born as a girl in India? Even now, in rural areas, you'll find girls with the name like Bhateri, Antim, which means the end. Bhateri means enough, because, families do not want to invest in any more girls, so they give. So imagine going through your life being called Antim. Every time somebody calls you, you're reminded how inconsequential you are, So that's the scenario. In that scenario, you need actually to uplift the value for girls, and if we are to have, an equal representation of women across sectors, across everything. And we know there are many reports that says that, if 50% of the population joins the workforce, then India will be richer by so many GDPs.
Correct.
Its GDP is going to go up in so many millions and trillions, it's going to go up. But on the other hand, we have a steady decline in women's participation in labor force. We had 23%, and I think with COVID now, I believe it's below 20%, which is absolutely disconcerting. In a country where we see women in boardrooms, we see women CEOs, we see women, working in every aspect of life. This whole discrimination that happens from a birth of a girl, is something that the whole country needs to rally around. It's not just...
Tell me, you work so closely with so many people, and you're right about this patriarchal society, but don't these patriarchs understand that without the birth of a daughter, the next generation of patriarchs will not even exist?
So, if you really kind of bring it down to women as a reproductive machinery, then of course people would say, a girl needs to be educated because she will educate the next generation of generation of people, and all of that. But what about women?
No, I don't mean to say that, but what I'm saying is that, I think that's the first and basic understanding when people start saying we don't want to have a daughter, and I think it's so shocking.
Right. Yeah. But people do not want to because they do not see the value. They do not see the value in having a girl because, traditionally, girls are not going to actually show you the doorway to heaven, and girls are not going to add to the family, income. And that's the thing. When you see girls doing that, and, many rural women have really kind of been the breadwinner in their families
Correct.
for generations, you know. When you see women contributing that way, you know, then probably things will, you know, change. But even after seeing this for such a long time, it doesn't change. So actually the collective norms in the society has to change. Your or mine changing and individual behavior changing will not help until and unless the whole community rallies itself around this and thinks differently and sees that value, things will not change.
I agree with you. So, you know, Sohini, let's talk a little bit about now the gender-based violence, which, you know, you are also working on.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about what exactly is happening and give me some instances.
So, you know, I mean, if you look at the whole spectrum of gender-based violence, you know, we have actually grown up normalizing it. You know, women themselves will tell you, "Ek thappadi tumhara tha." You know, they will tell you that it's all right. And I recognize that this is something that I'm going to face in my life. And even growing up as a young girl in very privileged family, as a very privileged upbringing, when you're out there in the street, you get whistled at, you get catcalled, and you know, boys think it's general time pass, and it's not violence, it's not, you know, it's not harassment, but it is actually not time pass. It is not, you know, it is not like that. It is violence. It is really then kind of restricting my mobility. I don't want to go out at night. I don't want to go to places where there are too many men around, you know. Those, and people do not realize that those are curtaining of human rights. Those are curtaining of your rights and your personal, you know, spaces. And you think it's all right to be protective around women. But, you know, so there's a huge amount of gender-based violence in our, and it starts very young, you know, it starts at the birth, like we discussed. And then, you know, you see girls getting different kind of nutrition than boys going to private schools while girls keep going to low resource government schools. You see girls being taken off the, you know, school to do housework, you know, and the burden of unpaid care work on young girls and women is enormous. I think worldwide women do, you know, 3 times more housework than men do. In India, I think it is more than 10 times of that, you know. And young girls look after siblings, they fetch water, they do all kinds of things. So it starts from then. And then, you know, when you get a girl married very early, you know, her ability to actually deal with domestic issues, her ability to, you know, fight domestic violence goes down, you know. And there is evidence saying that chances of domestic violence increase 40% if you marry a girl early. We think all of this, we put all of this into the spectrum of violence against women and girls. And it just doesn't have to be physical violence. It could be mental violence. It could be emotional torture. It could be verbal, all of this. And then, you know, there's this whole thing about workspace violence, which I'm not even getting into.
Right. So tell me then, you know, what is the answer is, you know, education is one definite answer, but how do you change attitudes?
So, you know, what Breakthrough has believed always is that we need to talk to both men and women. And we actually use a curriculum on gender equality that we use for grades 6, 7s, and 8s across 1,200 government schools now. And we've seen, and there was an RCT done on this by JPAL at MIT. And we saw that if we do a 2.5 year of intervention where we talk about agency, rights, both to boys and to girls. We talk about negotiation skills. We make, you know, encourage having intergender and intergenerational conversations, because in rural India, boys and girls, even though they're in co-ed schools, do not talk to each other. It's looked down upon. So if we do, and with this curriculum, we've seen that after 2.5 years of intervention, there's significant change in both gender-based attitudes as well as behavior. And now JPAL is actually doing a longitudinal cohort study, staying with the same group of 13,000, you know, adolescents, and seeing that when they're reaching 2021, are these behaviors sticking? We had the second end line during the lockdown in May 2020, and fortunately and really amazingly, some of those behaviors are still sticking. And in fact, in families where there has been intergenerational conversation on girls' dreams and aspirations, college applications for girls have gone up by 16%.
Wow.
Which is just amazing. So we want to now scale up this curriculum across all schools in India, at least government schools, definitely, because that's where, you know, things like this do not, you know, are not being talked about.
Amazing. So, when I was reading about one comment that you make is we use media, arts, tech to drive culture change and dismantle cultural norms that lead to violence and discrimination.
Right.
Help me understand this quote from you
Right.
with an example.
So, we use a lot of pop culture, which is mainstream culture. And we believe that actually pop culture is understood by a large number of people, and they make complex issues simple.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Sanjay story I just told you about, the beating the drum, beating the thali. One of the campaigns we ran in 2008 was actually it's called Bell Bajao, which asked men and boys to stand up and take action on violence against women, and through a very simple action like ringing the bell. Yeah. So you go up and you hear sounds of violence coming from behind doors. You go up and ring the bell. We never showed the violence happening. It was only sounds. We had 6 PSs. It was only sounds. And this man, and the man could be anybody. He could be, gully boys playing cricket. It could be, a middle class software engineer sitting in his, nice home. It could be somebody sitting in a Mumbai chawl. It could be a man repairing, a bike in the road. And there was always a little bit of humor behind it. So this one man goes up and asks to make a phone call while all the while his mobile phone is in his pocket, The idea is that if you hear violence, if you see violence, if you intervene, in that moment of intervention, there is a chance for somebody to actually rearrange themselves. So the woman can go and lock herself into a toilet. The man kind of thinks about fact that somebody is watching, and so violence stops. Now we brought this, we did 5-6 PSs on this, and one of them used Boman Irani from Bollywood to act in that. Now, when you actually, something as simple as ringing the bell, when you turn it on its head and say that ringing the bell is actually going to help someone, people start thinking differently. So we would have responses like, boys in a rural community would go and watch television at 6 p.m. at a neighbor's house every day so that the man wouldn't come home and, beat the wife up. We had one of our board members take her dog for a walk in a very tony neighborhood. And then she heard sounds of violence. She walked up and rang the bell and asked for water for the dog. So people started taking action. It became a metaphor for taking action worldwide, and the campaign got translated into 9 different languages. 9 countries adopted it, including China. And so it was a great moment for us. So that's the kind of work we started doing. And now, we do this work as well as we work in the community with the gender equality curriculum. And we actually train a group of, the 19 to 25-year-olds who are the champions who would take the mission forward, who are the role models for younger adolescents, but who's also our volunteers and who would really make the mission successful in the years to come. That's the ecosystem.
Fabulous. So one more question for you on, breakthrough before I move to the next part. Let's talk millennials. Millennials are changing the whole world. They're changing India.
Yeah.
How are the millennials reacting to the gender balance?
So I think the millennials have interpreted it all in their own terms.
Correct.
And there is much less tolerance now than we had, in my mother's generation, the tolerance was immense. In my generation, it came down a little bit. Yeah. But with the millennials, we're seeing that they are ready to actually take the bull by the horns. And because they use they're netizens, right? They use the net like, we used to use books probably. There are much more conversations with larger communities. There's conversations, there's taking action. Women and girls do not want to, bear this anymore. So I get that sense. Okay. And they're very passionate about things that they want to do. They're very passionate about giving back to society. So all of these are actually working in favor of dismantling patriarchy in the long run. Might not happen in my lifetime, but definitely in my daughter's lifetime.
Fantastic. So let's talk about Sanhita. which is your Gender Rights Center. Talk to me about what this center does.
So I co-founded this with a friend, and she was, the main kind of thinker behind it. I was the operational person. It was post, Beijing conference in 1995, and a lot of people wanted a space in which to, work on these issues in their own way, and we conceived of the space as a very open space where people can bring their issues, work on that. Ultimately, the organization focused a lot on sexual harassment. The Bishakha judgment had just come out then. The law wasn't passed, but the judgment was there, and there was a need to kind of familiarize people with this judgment. And so we did a lot of work on that, actually. It still continues to work on sexual harassment based out of Calcutta. I'm not associated with it anymore. I moved out of Calcutta in 1998, and I have not been back since then.
Okay.
But I know that the work is continuing.
Fantastic. Yeah. So now let me move to the last segment of our conversation, which are some questions for you personally.
Okay.
Sohini, you're doing such amazing work, working with so many families, making sure girls are protected, women are protected. What does success mean to Sohini?
I have my own parameters of success are very, very different than many people. And what I think is that I define success as an ability to do what I love in a way that is meaningful to myself and to a larger cross-section of people.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you do this thing that you love every day. And it may be very simple, but what you love may change over time also. Correct. But, having that ability to change what you are doing to match your passion is what I think is the true success.
Fantastic. And a follow-up question to that is that you keep doing so much work. What inspires you?
So first of all, the very, very slow but very sure changes that you see happening in a community or an individual, when girls speak up, when girls do something fantastic, when girls put together a cricket team out of nowhere in a backward village in UP and want to do things, So you see that they have the opportunity now to thrive. So that's a fabulous kind of a thing. Other than that, I think my inspiration comes from work of so many other NGOs across the country. There are fabulous work being done. So that's another source of inspiration.
Okay. My next question to you is on failure.
Okay.
I have a new book coming out on failure, and I've always had this hypothesis that Indian parents, or for that matter, South Asian or Asian parents, don't teach their children it's okay to fail.
Absolutely.
And that manifests itself in our behavior patterns. Absolutely. Whether you're standing at a traffic light, my car must be first, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Yet we keep failing all the time.
Absolutely.
My question to you is, what have been some of your learnings from some of your mistakes or your failures?
So, nothing of value in life comes to you easily.
Okay.
You have to fight for it. That's
right.
one of the things. And I believe that a very firm, a transparent, and a bold approach, always wins out.
Okay.
Yeah. And the fact that you have to take decisions, even if that decision is going to be a failure. As a leader of an organization, at one point of time, you have to take decisions, and you have to be prepared to fail as well. And we, as you said rightly, we do not talk about failure. But I work also, we have a sister concern in the US, which I also work with, and I see that in US, in many conversations, they celebrate failures, and people are encouraged to talk about failures.
Amazing. And so, my last question to you, and I come back to the pandemic that the whole world is facing.
Right.
How are you rethinking your own life in the new world order?
So, I traveled 100 days last year, 100 days. And my New Year resolution was, I have to cut down on my travel. I don't want to travel so much. I didn't know that this is going to happen. And this is, we really haven't traveled at all. So I think, it has kind of opened everybody's eyes that a lot can be done virtually. A
Correct.
lot can be done long distance.
Mm.
You do not have to always be there face to face with people. And even, managing teams and things like that can still happen, though there's, face to face is always much, much better probably.
Correct.
But a lot of things can be managed at a distance. So you can cut down on travel. You can cut down on being in the office every single day of your life because, I don't think I've been more productive than this year. I've done so much work which I've not done in any other years. So those are some of the things that are dawning on me. And the thing that you have to put away time for yourself. I'm very bad at doing that, but you have to do that. So those are the two things that I think I'm going to take away from the COVID-19.
Fantastic. Sohini, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. I wish you and everything that you're doing at Breakthrough lots of success.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh. Lovely conversation, and I hope it was what you had expected.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to The Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for The Brand Called You.